हरि ओम। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। नारायणसमारम्भां आचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। नाहं कर्ता हरिकर्ता तत्पूजाकमचाखिलं यद्यत् कर्म करोमि तत्फलं शम्भो तवाराधनम्। शरणागतदीनार्तपरित्राणपरायण सर्वस्यातीदेवी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। ओम नमो भगवते शिवानंदाय, ओम नमो भगवते चिदानंदाय, ओम नमो भगवते कृष्णानंदाय। Celebrations and adorations at the feet of Sri Guru Gurudev Swami Shivanji Maharaj, and celebrations and adorations at the feet of Divine Mother. By the divine grace of Divine Mother, we are just trying to pursue something about some special manifestation of Divine Mother in terms of Bhagavad Gita, which is an eternal song, a song sung by the universal for the ultimate bliss and blessedness of what is commonly called as individual. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swaram Vyasena Kratitam Puranam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshiniം Bhagavatim Ashtadashaധ്യായിനിം Ambatvāmanusandadhāmi Gītevavadveshinim. Let us try to take an overview of this wonderful eternal song. And we are discussing about the problem which every mankind faces, as we termed it as Arjuna disease, and the panacea, the divine remedy which the Lord administered. We call it as a Krishna therapy. The Krishna therapy is whole Bhagavad Gita. Okay? So, I was just thinking, how do we place the whole subject in a little more pragmatic perspective? So what exactly is Arjuna, and how do we relate him with the ultimate destination that we have in our life? Correct? So let us consider the highest point where we want to reach. That we call it as a state of moksha, state of liberation, a state of supreme reality, Paramatman, Parabrahman. That is one thing. And among human beings, who will be called equivalent to this position? There are some technical words, but it's good to know that one who has attained that state of oneness with supreme reality, the one who has attained the state of what is called as self-realization or God-realization. What is that person called as? There are various names, Siddha Prajna is one thing which you can say. Siddha Prajna is a man of steady wisdom. That is described in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. After elaboration of Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, Arjuna questions him, so how does that man behave? How does he relate himself to the world? In that case, this Siddha Prajna Lakshana is given. Same way in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you will see Gunatita Lakshana. The person, the sadhaka, who has transcended the three gunas. We are all under the influence of three gunas. It could be rajas, tamas, sattva, or mixture thereof. But still we are under the influence. Trigunya Vishaya, Nisragunya Bhavana, there is no sloka is there. There will be away, not away, but rise above this guna, transcend this guna. That gunadi tamasa, you read that same thing there. And in the 12th chapter also, you read Bhakta Lakshana. So normally we understand Bhakta means the classical understanding of Bhakta. But here Bhakta is the one, again, is a Jnani, is Parabhakti. There are all the three places where the characteristics of realization are described. But what do we call that person? These are the descriptions, That's the person we can call. Gunadit you can call. Paramajnani, Parabhakti you can call. But in technical terms also, it is also called as Siddha Purusha, or it is also called as Vidvat Sannyasi. It is also called as Vidvat Sannyasi. So, Raman Maharshi is there, the Ramakrishna Paramahansa is there, Swami Shivaji Maharaj is there. You can call them in that position, and that is called Siddha Purusha. Yeah.
Sir, can you describe the qualities of three gunas? What is the characteristic?
I think maybe we can do it in like open class tomorrow. I have a vision, that I just want to give all the vision which I have, correct? And in one go other they will come. But if I take it one by one, I think that will take the whole time, correct? So I think you be a little patient, then automatically it will come, or maybe you can take it at next class also, correct? So Vidvat Sannyas is the word, correct, which you can remember. And also, as I said, Siddha Purusha, correct? So this is the goal. And the goal not that one attains after giving up this body, understand? All other scriptures, all other religions normally will tell us that, at some point of time, after having done something, we go to a particular place and then we attain that position. And here that is not that. They say it is instantaneous, it is immediate, and that is called as Satya Mukti, immediate liberation. While in this very physical frame, Ajivan Mukti, that is what they are called, And then other types of Mukti is also there. But there are people who have been able to realize it right in this very person, in this physical frame. And how that person behaves, that's all the description. That's the very example. Right? So Siddha Purusha or Vidvat Sannyasa, this is the goal where you want to reach. Now who is trying to go there? What's the next step? The person who is trying to reach this step, they will be called as sadhaka. They will be called as aspirants. Or they can also be called as yogi. They can also be called as yogi. So normally you understand by the word yogi, correct? That attuning yourself with the divine. Not that maybe entirely, but whatever physical, mental, intellectual abilities, functions that we have, we attune in the pursuit of that union. That's normally referred to as a yogi. And that is what we normally call it as sadhaka also, right? Now, Bhagavad Gita describes two types of sadhaka. Bhagavad Gita describes two types of sadhaka. That those who are seriously engaged in pursuit of truth, in pursuit of divine reality. Who are they? Bhagavad Gita describes two sadhakas. After the whole second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Bhagavan has given the complete message, and he thought everything is over, nothing else is remaining. At the end of that second chapter, when Bhagavan has given all the message, Arjuna, instead of saying, thanks Lord, I have gained everything, I am fine, the course is over. Supposing 60 days course is over. And then if you say that I didn't understand this, that, please again, say again. So where do you stand? That is what exactly happened here. That everything was over, Bhagavan thought it's all complete, there is nothing more need to be said. And then he said that you are saying things which are very nice, but apparently confusing. Sometimes you are praising jnana, sometimes you are praising karma. Jnana is path of renunciation of action, and karma is path of performance of action. So you are praising karma sometimes, perform action, tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. At the same time you are also saying renounce. That isn't where what is good for you, please tell me. So in that sense, from chapter 3, the entire Bhagavad Gita is repeated, if you understand it. The second chapter is practically in whole, even if you understand there's nothing which is left out. But that maybe for reaffirmation of people like us, Bhagavan reiterates the whole message. So that Arjuna will ask this question, Bhagavan, and again he said, Lokeshmin Dividanishta Pura Prokta Mayanava Jnana Yogena Sankhanam Karma Yogena Yogena. So Bhagavan says at that time that this is something which I have said several millennia, several hundreds of years before. Arjuna doesn't know that Bhagavan is here, born right now. How does he say that I said this and that? So Lokesh means Dvija Nishtha, two types of Nishtha, lifestyles are there. Pura Prokta means I have said before, Mayanava means Arjuna. Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam, Karma Yogena Yogina. So here Sankhya is sannyasi. Here Sankhya means sannyasi. So Jnana Yoga is Sankhya. So those people who want to pursue the path of knowledge, they are called as sannyasi. And which kind of sannyasi? The first is also sannyasi. Because sannyasi is I said, correct? Now this another sannyasi is there. So what kind of sannyasi is this? This is called as Vividisha sannyasi. This is called as Vividisha sannyasi. So all the sannyasis what we see in the ashram, and not that they are not Vidvat, you can't say that, but generally it will be like that, But all the people who take sannyasa as a lifestyle, and they have no other worldly duties, they are only engaged in pursuit of knowledge, only divine contemplation, no other job, and the world permits this. Our Shastra permits it. They may not do any other job. They are only engaged in contemplation. They are called as Vividisha sannyasi. And they are also sannyasi, correct? Because they have given up other things. First is Vidvat sannyas, that they realize everything is all manifestation mithya, Brahma Satyam Jagan mithya. So for them, nothing is there, everything is renounced. Here comes Vividisha sannyasi, and other is Karma Yoga. Right? So two types of sadhaka are there. So first you have Vidvat sannyasi, and the second category is yogi, or aspirants, or sadhakas. Two types. One is Vividisha sannyasi, and second one is Karma yogi. So who are the Karma yogi? Who are not fit, for pursuit of Jnana Path. Who are not fit for, who is not fit for Jnana Path? See, supposing when you say, yesterday I was talking to you, there are two types of methods God has given. One is priori and one is posterior. So priori is this kind of thing, that those who perform Vividisha sannyasi, what do? They don't do anything else. They directly try to understand the nature of the self, nature of the Atman. They try to develop the eye of the intuition. And that is one path. For Vidvat sannyasi, already they have pursued that priori path. Understand? Vividisha sannyasi are on that path. They have not reached that goal, but they are trying that particular path. That they don't do anything else. They only try to contemplate what is divine, Brahma when you say. So in that Tattvamasi, Tat is Brahma. Correct? And the meaning of that Tat is Brahman is Tat. And they always think with Brahman, with Atman. So that kind of thing they are performing. So they are called as Vividisha sannyasi. Now, who can contemplate on this kind of supreme reality alone? No other job. Only those people whose antakarana or whose inner self, comprising of mind and intellect, is relatively pure, is relatively calm, is relatively at peace. Supposing you have to think about God, think about Brahman, and we are agitated from inside. For whatever reasons you are not happy with ourselves, The mind is kshipta, vikshipta avastha. Mood avastha is tamas, kshipta and vikshipta avastha is there. Can you think? We can't even concentrate on a worldly subject also. Ordinary subject also. How can we think on a subject which is so subtle? How can we think on a subject which is so finest of the fine? So most people, in this case Arjuna, also was not fit for that Vividisha sannyasa. So he wanted all the time, Bhagavan, that give me, permit me sannyasa. I want to renounce everything. I am not interested in the worldly pleasures. But then he was not ready in that state of mind. Yes, most of us will not be ready. Because we need a relatively pure, relatively calm, relatively subtle antakarana. As long as it is not there, we cannot concentrate not only on divine element but on ordinary subject also. So even for a normal success in life also, we need a calm mind, a peaceful mind. That's a peaceful thing. And that is something if you don't have, then the Bhagavan says, the right path for you is Karma Yoga. Right path for you is Karma Yoga. So, Lokeshmin Dvida Nishtha Pura Prokta Mayanaga Jnana Yoga and Sankhya. So those who are relatively at least renounced from the world, they are not interested in the worldly pursuits, they are happy, Antakarana is relatively pure, by performance of the Karma Yoga, they can take recourse to Jnana Yoga, study the scriptures and think on that. But majority people will not be ready for that. And for them, they prescribe the path of Karma Yoga. Correct? And as we know what is Karma Yoga, correct? Karma Yoga is a very great message of Bhagavad Gita also. As I said the first day also, because the whole world is moving, dynamic, full of activity. Nothing is static. So if the whole world is full of dynamism, full of activism, how can action always be contradictory to evolution? Right? It is only when we perform action with a sense of desire, personal desire, it becomes karma phala giving in mind. But if you perform karma in the spirit of Karma Yoga, means whatever Lord has destined for the whole world, I have to play a small part in that. I am doing it with happiness. I am doing it, whatever condition that God has given to me for that, I take it with pleasure. I take it with happiness. Correct? And I offer my action as offering to the God. And whatever fruit comes to me, I take it as a prasad. So if you read that second chapter, that 14th, the second chapter only, as I said, not to Jnana Yoga, there is a Karma Yoga also. There was a Yogasya Karma. Sangam Tektva Anandaya, Siddha Siddha Samabhutva, Samatva Nirachya. So steadiness of mind. This is called as karma. That we are at peace with ourselves. We are at ease with ourselves. We are not afflicted by the debates of success and happiness, peace and restlessness. Whatever happens outside, we are just a witness. In that spirit, we perform the action. And samatvam yoga. One of the definition of yoga is evenness of mind is yoga. Now see, there are two words. One is called evenness of mind, or man ka samatva, and one is called equanimity, samadarshita. Do you see any difference? Even in that Vishwa Prarthana, what we sing here, Mami, what does he say? Grant yourself understanding heart. Equal vision, balanced. Are these two things same or are they different? Apparently they look quite close. Correct? Equal vision and balanced. How do you take it? Balanced mind we are just discussing right now, correct? That you don't get influenced severely by happenings around us. Whatever happens, good or bad, whatever happens, just take it with ease, Take it, not that you accept everything, but don't get perturbed. Take it the way it is. That is called as evenness of mind. That is called as manda samatva. This is the definition of Karma Yoga. This is the essence of Karma Yoga. Only when we do the work in the spirit of divine service, this particular thing can come to us. And what is equanimity? Equal vision, balance. So what is equal vision? This is also equal vision, what we say right now, correct? Saying good or bad, whatever is there, is steady. That's not exactly equal vision, but there's a preparation for equal vision. Equal vision is what? In everything which you see, you try to see Sat, Chit, Ananda. There are various slokas are there in Drashya Vivek also. Correct? That anything which you see, either in the world or in yourself. There are two slokas are there. I will tell you also what are they. So two things are there. You see the world or you see yourself. Beyond names and forms, in whole Jagat, Prapancha what we see, we will see names and forms. But there are 5 elements are there. Correct? So, Sat, Chit, Anand, Nama and Rupa. So, what we see is Nama and Rupa. Because that is how we are conditioned. We cannot think of anything without name and form. Anything we think is always about name and form. So, when we think in terms of names and forms, have evenness of mind. That's the message, correct? That even if there are different names are there, different forms are there, no problem, they are all fine, whatever they are, let them be there. Even if you are looking in names and forms, you have equilibrium. We have this steadiness of mind. That is Samatva Yoga. And Samadarshita, when we say understanding our equal vision is the higher version. Equal vision is a higher version. Then balance of mind. But if you don't have balance of mind, equal vision can never happen. So all the Mahapurushas, everybody tells us, that cultivate equal vision, see God everywhere, in every manifestation. That is fine, that's the goal. But Samadarshita or equal vision means the whole world is unequal. There is nothing equal in the world. So how can there be equal vision? Only when you see this Satchidananda Paramatma inside that there is no inequality. Everything is unequal. If you exclude that, whatever you see, everything, every cell, every atom is different. So when you want to see unique, when you want to see oneness, that is only in terms of beholding Satchidananda. So when you see Satchidananda, that is basically equanimity, equal vision. So when you say Jnana Yoga or Vividisa Sannyasi, what are they trying to do? They are trying to see oneness, God everywhere. And that does not happen that easily, because our mind is conditioned with so many sanskaras, rajas, tamas and all that. So we first cultivate steadiness. And once the mind becomes steady, then it becomes fit for reception of that knowledge anyway. So I hope you get exactly correct. But these two categories of people, what we say, these are called sadhakas or the yogis. So Lokesh means Dvidanishta, Pura Prokta Mayanaga, Jnana Yoga and Sankhyanam, Karma Yoga and Yoginam. So Bhagavan says two paths are there, only two lifestyles. Jnana Yoga and Sankhyanam, Karma Yoga. If you are relatively at peace with yourself, if you are not obsessed with any other worldly ambition and desires, enough is enough, I have played my part, then you take Vividisa Sannyas. And Swami Shivanji Maharaj was that way very, very eager in giving sannyas. In fact, he has given sannyas to a large number of people, and that they call it spiritual ministry. His word is called for his sannyas. And he has given sannyas to some people by post also, which some seems objective to. But then he said, whenever the renunciation comes, be ready for that. That you should be afraid of that. But that is Vividisa Sannyasi. And for most people, it's not right. Even Swamiji, so many people, he didn't give it the right time. And he said, wait, do sadhana, do karma yoga, and then only come. It happened to men, just as Bhagavan did for Arjuna also, correct? But that is karma yoga. And most of us have to be ready and have to progress in karma yoga. So, karma yoga and jnana yoga are not optional, understand? Both are essential, but both are in sequence. So those people who take sannyasa from the very beginning, it means they have had that spiritual life in their previous birth or maybe in this birth, and the sanskaras are like that, and right from that, Shukdev and others, if you see from the moment they were born, they are ready, they are born sannyasi, they are really good sannyasi. So like that, the two things are there. One more thing, just a little more analytically if you understand. We have discussed two types of sannyas. First is Vidvat sannyas or realization. Second is sadhaka, who is a Vividisa sannyasi. So who is a sadhaka? Like Karma Yogi, there is no technical difference as per the scripture. We respect heavier saints and you always regard them as higher. That is our reverence. But technical terms, if you are a Karma Yogi or even if you are a sannyasi, you are on the same path in sadhana. So two types of sannyas. Bhagavad Gita describes three types of sannyas in 18th chapter. Have you seen that? Bhagavad Gita is so melodious, not only melodious, but so magnificent, so all-encompassing that Karma Yogis are also described as sannyas. It looks very strange, We are discussing this and we are saying you say two traditions are there. Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga. Again you say Karma Yoga is sannyasi. That is there. It's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita also. These subtle points are there. And why Karma Yogis are sannyasi? Because what do they renounce? See, sannyasi means you renounce something. That is what is sannyasi, correct? Samyak nyasa. You wisely, with understanding, give up something. That is the meaning of sannyasi. So for Vidvat sannyasi, fine, everything is practically vidya. So for him, everything is renounced in a very sahaj way. Vividisa sannyasi, with that understanding what it does. And what does Karma Yogi renounce? Karma Yogi renounces fruits of action. And renouncing fruit of action sometimes is more difficult than even renouncing karma. Not that comparatively sannyasi is more difficult, but for some people, renouncing fruits of karma is not. Because unless and until we have got that little attachment for the fruits, we just cannot work anything. So even when we say that Nishkam Karma we are doing, what the God says we are doing as good as mission, servant, this and that, everything we speak. But deep within, there is always some sense of devotion. Some sense of devotion. That is Ahankara. And Ahankara is what? That I am Karta, I am Karta. Now this topic has come, so let us say, do Karma Yogins have Ahankara or not? If you ask this question, actually some student from this class will ask me. Someday I asked, they said, how do you say this? Karma Yogis cannot do Ahankara like that, they said. So I said, why would you say that? See, unless and until some kind of Ahankara is there, or some kind of Dvaita Bhava is there, no karma is possible. Even if you want to perform some sattvic action also, we need some kind of Ahankara. So it is not that Ahankara is completely, Ahankara will be absent only in legal sannyas. But whether you are a Vidisha sannyasi or Karma Yogi, subtle or little gross form of Ahankara will always be there. But as you practice Karma Yoga, or as you go deeper in that Jnana Yoga, you slowly realize the Mithyatva. I hope everybody knows Mithya. Mithya doesn't mean non-existent. Mithya is something which does not have eternal and permanent existence there. That's what Mithya, correct? So you realize that Mithyatva, for a Jnani he realizes Mithyatva. And for Karma Yogin, he sees everywhere Lord, Vishwarupa Darshana. So wherever he sees Bhagavan, whatever he sees the form of Lord. And in that case, he is performing the action. So his Ahankara gets gradually thinned out. So once you are a person with less of Ahankara, I-ness, in that case, Antharkarana becomes more and more pure, more and more subtle, and you become ready for the path of Jnana Yoga. So Karma Yogi in Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, if we read, in 6th chapter, first sloka is also there, correct? Sannyasi and Yogi like that. So even Karma Yogi also in a limited context or in a particular context is this kind of sannyasi. A very great message of Bhagavad Gita, like, that you always feel that they are ordinary people, we are not sannyasis, we are sansari, like that we talk to everybody when we talk, when we describe the limitations. But they say that even if you perform Karma Yoga in a spirit of detachment, in that case, because that karma phala is given up, that is also called as, in a limited sense, it can also be called as sannyasa. So what we are discussing here was this, that you have got this Siddha Purusha, which was sannyasa. Then you have got the second category is the sadhakas, or called as yogis. And as per the Bhagavad Gita, the entire message of Bhagavad Gita is this: either you follow Karma Yoga or not either, but in sequential, first Karma Yoga and then Jnana Yoga. That's the way the Bhagavad Gita says. Now, when you say yogi, they are the people whose body, mind and intellect and all the apparatus that they have are employed in some way in search of divine, in search of Ishvara. That's the difference, Because whatever is endowed to them, they think these are the resources God has given. And they are not bad. See, if I tell you that this body, mind and intellect are the Jiva Srishti or Ishvara Srishti? Because in Shastra they describe two types of creation also, correct? One is Ishvara Srishti, created by Ishvara, and one is Jiva Srishti. So, body, mind and intellect, or gross and subtle body, they are part of Ishvara Srishti. They are not part of Jiva Srishti. We have not created them, understand? They have been given to us the way it is. It is up to us how do we make use of that. But they are a part of Ishvara Srishti. So, these have to be rightly employed. And they are employed in the search of divine. See, when you read 100 years, yesterday I was reading one message by Mahatma, that whenever somebody does namaskara, you say that, Satayu Bhava. And then Swamiji said, that instead of Satayu Bhava, you say, some Sanskrit word he has used, that Gunavanta,
May your life be full of qualities like that. Because he said that long life doesn't necessarily become a life of virtue. Lead a virtuous life. Be a virtuous life. Lead a virtuous life. So leading a virtuous life is more important than leading a long life. So likewise, if we live 100 years, say good, we should do. That's what Isabnes also says. We have got very, very sharp, very peaceful mind. We have got a very simple intellect. Everything is there. But if these things are not used in search of the divine, in exploring the divine, in exploring who am I, we have not done full justice to it. We have not done anything wrong. Ethically, morally, we are right. But we have missed the boat. We have missed the right destination. So here, sannyasins or karmayogi, they have, to a smaller or larger extent, employed themselves in the search or exploration of the divine. Correct? So these two categories, one is Viddut sannyasi, second is sadhaka. A third category is what? Third category we call bhogi. So one is Ishvara, then you have got yogi, then you have got bhogi. Who is bhogi? Arjuna is not bhogi here. Correct? We are all hopefully not bhogi. So bhogi are those people who utilize body, mind and intellect in worldly pursuits. In worldly pursuits. In worldly places, And we can enjoy the life, we can lead a good decent life, we can go for outside seeing everything we do. And here again, bhogi also may be ethical. Not that they are always unethical. They may follow dharma, they may follow adharma also. Dharma means righteousness here, correct? So they may do righteous action, a profession, a good profession is there, correct? Good doctor is there, good lawyer is there. But if there is no place for Ishvara in your life, then you are not a sadhaka. The difference between sadhaka and bhogi, what you call a sansari, if you want to call, is this, that you are not engaged in pursuit of divine. That has no place. If divine has no place in your life, if Ishvara has no place in your life, then you cannot be called sadhaka. The Bhagavad Gita is all about sadhaka. But here comes another category called bhogi, or if you call sansari. They again can be ethical, law-abiding, nothing wrong per se, as far as the world laws are concerned. But if Ishvara is not there in your life, means you have missed the boat. The vital birth that has been given has not been fully utilized. But this is a category called bhogi. And all the sciences which we have, all the pleasures which we have in the world, all the medicines, everything that we created is for this, That you have a long life, you have got peaceful mind, sharp intellect like that, that's fine. But these are the instruments. The instruments are used not judiciously, inordinately, and that is no wisdom, that is no wise life. And one more category, what shall we call? Viddut sannyasi is there, then you have got yogi, two types of yogi, then you have got bhogi also, and now got rogi also. So what are the rogi? So rogi are those people who have not been able to keep their body, mind and intellect apparatus fit. They are not fit for enjoying worldly pleasures also. Right? So they are not fit for enjoying worldly pleasures also. So if you are diseased, supposing God willing, nothing happens to us. Supposing we are physically struck down, mentally obliterated, or some kind of psychological maladjustment. Arjuna here is a rule, understand. What I am trying to say is, he has stooped, gone down to that position. It can happen to us also. We should not, in that sense, pity him. But we should take a lesson that this can happen to us also. So when you become a rogi, means the instruments which are there, body, mind and intellect, they are not right. They are not functioning properly. So let alone search of the divine or anything on earth, you cannot lead a simple, worldly, peaceful life. So the point which I was trying to think as to what really Bhagavad Gita is. So Bhagavad Gita is a message for Rogi also. Bhagavad Gita is a message for Bhogi also. And Bhagavad Gita is a message for Yogi also. So that is my universe. I was just thinking, I have not read this in English. I'm just trying to think, So how can it help in Rogi? Supposing you are a diseased person, how is Bhagavad Gita going to help? In that case, we can think how can it help. Swami Vivekananda was the person who always emphasized, that always you should tone up your body, you should tone up your mind, intellect like that. You have got infinite powers. So Swami Shivanji Maharaj also many cases here. That within you there is a magazine of power, a fountain of joy. So many things he has said. Now this is not only at the Atman level. This is at the psychological level also. And in modern science we call coping with emotions, coping with stress. If you cannot cope with the emotions, if you do not cope with the stress, in that case, Rogi Avastha will come. As is happened to Arjuna. In one case, you can say ignorance is there, then Ahankara is there, and then Mohtva is there. Okay, that's one thing. But ultimately, it will come down to this thing that this psychophysical instrument also becomes weak. We cannot do our worldly job also. And how Bhagavad Gita helps you? That's a question, right? You may say go to gym, exercise, do inspiring reading, this and that. But there are two ways it can help. I always felt, and I personally experienced, that Swadhyaya has got a great energizing power. Supposing, at any point of time, you are facing a cloud of depression, dullness, even if you don't do anything, read something, what really you have faith in. And not, I am saying any superstition, but many people, who have experienced this Swami Shivanji Maharaj, maybe others also could be put it through. At that point of time, you open that particular thing and read, and a message that will come to you will immediately tone you up, right from bottom to top, straight as you can be uplifted. A huge psychoanalytical benefit there for Swadhyaya. And if you other way understand in a little more analytical sense, the body, mind, and the intellect, they have got finite power. They don't have infinite power, but they have the capability to harness huge power when they draw the light from the Atma. So the power of the body, mind is coming from the soul. So once we understand ourselves at the level of soul, at the level of Atman, and then we hear, this is what I am. Like yesterday the book was published, that the ultimate message, the message of Vaishnava, the same thing I read yesterday. That then that light is borrowed, or that light comes from the soul. Atma, what you call soul force, So ultimately your physical strength or mental strength is also a function of soul force. Normally you understand mental force is important. If the mind is not good, body will not work. Sportsman will fail, speaker will fail. But that mental function also is coming from the soul force. So when you attune with the soul, mind and intellect also will get awakened. They will get alerted. So that is how Bhagavad Gita is also meant for yogis. Provided they have got some little preparedness and some little faith. But for any ordinary person, if you just transgress your state of yogi, definitely it's a vanishing. It's a negative. Same thing is true for yogi also. They have to engage everywhere. Slowly they will realize that engaging in all these worldly pursuits is not going to lead me to ultimate happiness. See, they say that everybody wants, if you analyze our personality, we want existence, we want happiness, and we want peace. Everybody wants this. Nobody wants to die. Everybody wants to postpone days by various mechanisms, or putting your photographs, this and that, so that you remain forever. Why? This is the feeling. Although we have a feeling that I am going to die, but still within that such element is there, it always keeps you, that you always want to be in existence. When you say Chit, means it is Jnana and it is Shakti both. Chit means for Jnana and Shakti. That you always want to be full of power, full of strength, you always want to be knowledgeable, you don't want to be ignored. That is because of Chit Swarupa is there. And then comes that Ananda Swarupa. That always, that I want to be happy. And happiness not dependent upon something, unconditional happiness. Not depending upon any objects of the world or any condition of the world. So this is what I want. And that is Satchitananda Swarupa. So whenever man engages in worldly activity, these so-called yogis, they will do different time. Slowly that understanding will come that this has limitation. This cannot take me beyond a particular point. And I have to think of something beyond this. Enough is enough. I spent so many years, but this cannot contain me forever. So that way it addresses for yogi also, yogi also, and for yogi definitely is meant for that. Right? So all the scriptures are basically meant for all these people, but mainly essentially is meant for yogis, those who are aspiring and they want all these things to happen in their life. And finally, for Vidvat Sannyasi, it is there or not there scripture? it is not there. We say that all the shastras and scriptures what are there, they are basically meant when you are in a state of ajnana. Only the ignorance is there. And when ignorance is not there, then shastras, they don't have any relevance at all. Correct? Now let us say we understood two things here. There are two paths are there, Jnana Yoga and Karma. Now Swami Shivanji Maharaj always, he is a very great proponent of what is called as Samanvaya Yoga. Sometimes Vedanta teacher do not agree with this word Samanvaya Yoga, but that I don't want to get into that part. But let us see, integral yoga is something which is wonderful. And we must have it in our life. And we say, serve, love, give, verify, or enable us, meditate and realize. So when you say serve, love, meditate and realize. So serve when you say, it basically stands for Karma Yoga, Nishkam Karma. Love when you say, it basically stands for Bhakti Yoga. Meditate when you say, it essentially stands for Dhyana Yoga. What is essentially Raj Yoga, what you are studying, the Yoga Sutra, Raja Yoga and Raj Yoga. And that realization is the ultimate fruition that is basically called as Jnana Yoga culmination. So when you say that this is a thing, how do you reconcile these two things? Bhagavad Gita, when you say that only two lifestyles are there, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And here, Swami Shivanji Maharaj tells us that this Samanvaya Yoga is there. And Samanvaya Yoga means putting all that we have in our existence into sadhana. That is called Samanvaya Yoga. Everything is there, we put into use. That's called as Samanvaya Yoga. So how do we reconcile this? Swamiji was very poetic in that. He always used to say, excel in service, expand in love, advance in knowledge, realize the self. Very simple. You can also sing with me. Excel in service, expand in love, advance in knowledge, realize the self. Don't read so many things. A simple word that contains the whole message. Excel in service is something all over. You understand whatever you want to excel, you decide yourself. Expand in love is, what love is very good, love is very divine, but when it is confined to some objects and some space, it becomes limited. Otherwise, universal love is the best thing which you can have. Advance in knowledge, knowledge is there, what we have, but that knowledge relates to the kshetra, correct? But kshetra, no, also about your own self, correct? Know the object as well as the subject. That is jnana, and realize yourself. So he used to say that knowledge is love in concentrated essence. These are all there in this divine, these words are there, correct? Since I was a student, I have read this. Knowledge is love in concentrated essence. So concentrate the love into your knowledge. Love is knowledge in diffuse expression. When knowledge is there, it diffuses, then you get love. If you know knowledge, how can love will get? And service is love expressed to action. So these three things are interconnected. Right? And then, how we say that Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, two yogas are there. But when we say Bhakti and Dhyana, they are common names. They are common denominators, correct? Maybe we can carry it forward tomorrow for the whole explanation. Without Bhakti, you cannot have Karma Yoga, you cannot have Jnana Yoga. And without Dhyana also, you cannot have Karma Yoga, you cannot have Jnana. So Bhakti and Dhyana, they are considered as Antaranga Sadhana, Karma Yoga is considered Bahiranga Sadhana, and Sakshatkar is Sakshat that Sadhana. So they are the links. And without that Bhakti and Dhyana, it cannot happen. But both are common denominators, correct? And even if you read the whole Bhagavad Gita also, the entire message of Bhagavad Gita, Mahapurusha says, can be described in 3 words. That is the message of Upanishads. Tat, Tvam, Asi. Tat is the supreme reality, all pervading Brahman. Where is there in Bhagavad Gita? Normally first 6 chapters. Normally, that is Tvam. The Tat means that supreme reality, Tvam means you, and Asi, so that you are. So that means the Parabrahman is Tat Pada. That is the second half, 7 to 12 chapter. Tvam means who you are, that is the first 6 chapters. And Asi is the last 6 chapter. So if you see Bhagavad Gita in this context, In 3, it is not a rigid classification. There are overlapping things, but you can see first 6 chapters, they talk about Tvampada, means who is Jiva. The next 6 chapters talk about Tatpada, means what is Ishvara. And the last 6 chapters talk about Asipada, means they are one in essence. And as far as sadhana is concerned, the first 6 chapters can be called as Karma Yoga, although Karma Yoga is there all throughout. But largely, first 6 chapters, Bhakti Yoga, next 6 chapters, and Jnana Yoga, like that. So Jnana, Bhakti and Karma are interwoven, interrelated. And what Swami Shivananda Maharaj is saying, that the entire constitution that we have, we need to put for the divine. Nothing should be left unused, unexplored. That is his message, and that is Bhagavad Gita's message also of harmony in yoga, integral yoga. That is what Bhagavad Gita says. And as far as lifestyle is concerned, we should be following yoga. So may this knowledge ripen, settle in our understanding, and also become a part of our living here. That is our prayer to Mother Gita and to Hari.